it's a really fun way to check in, especially using the GIFs. So we will, I think Jody's suggestion of bringing it back at the end might be a really good suggestion, just to give you a sense of the day. I'm sorry, did someone say something? Oh, I thought I heard someone. Just to give you a sense of what we're doing, I'm going to switch over to the slide deck. Give me a second here. Here it is.
So feel free to keep adding to that Padlet throughout the day here, and we'll put it back up at 6:15. I love the idea of adding
to the Padlet because we will bring it back up at the end as long as someone reminds me.
Be a nice little exciting takeoff into Friday night,
which is awesome.
I'm sure everyone is going out on the town and dancing and being with tons of people, right?
We miss that, right? We miss going out. Live music. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm like off in my little It's Friday afternoon world, but we have a little bit of work to do before we hit that point. I am so happy to be with you again today. Jody and Maria and I will be with you for the next couple hours. My name, well, let me start with what we're doing, and then I have a slide for us. But we're going to take the concepts we talked about yesterday and show you how they play out in a unit. And the unit is this Abuelita Biliteracy unit. It was designed and was taught with a first grade group. So you will see some samples of student work related to this unit. We're going to talk about what a guided release of responsibility looks like within Literacy Squared, which might be different, may not, but it might be different than how you've thought about it previously. We want to be sure you're super clear on that because it really does affect planning. And after we've shown you how we use this bilingual book, so we use it one way in Spanish and another way in English. So we'll show you all of the Spanish first, and then we'll show you how the English builds upon what's happened in Spanish. Then we're going to provide you with some planning time. So toward the end, you will have a chunk of time to go into breakout rooms. You can go into a room. I'm going to set them up while Jody's presenting on the English, but you can go into a room just with your partner. You can go in with all the first grade teachers. So we're going to let you self-select into groups. And if you are a person who just wants to sit quietly for 20 minutes and just work on a unit that you're doing, that's okay too. So I will have lots of rooms and we'll talk about how you opt into them when the time comes. So, whoops. Okay. So just like yesterday, we have the same three folks with us today. My name is Sue Hopewell. As I told you yesterday, I've been with Literacy Squared since 2004. I began when I was a literacy coach with an elementary school, but my background is in dual language. I taught in a two-way dual language immersion program until becoming a literacy coach for a maintenance bilingual program before leaving and becoming a professor and working on Literacy Squared permanently, because I really believe with my whole heart and soul that at least right now, at this point in history, this is given all that we know, given the research that's available to us, this is the best we can do for our kids right now. Now, that doesn't mean that next year we won't discover something new and fabulous that we need to incorporate into our instruction, but I'm pretty passionate about the education of bilingual learners. And it's what I've dedicated my life to. Like once I discovered it, yeah, I just stayed. We also have Jody and Maria. Would each of you, Jody, would you like to start? Just say hello really quickly before we dive in?
Sure, I'll say hello. And I think actually Maria had to step out to that other meeting, but she'll be back. I'm Jody Slavic. I met you all yesterday, and this is my, I think, 23rd year teaching. I've only taught bilingual learners my entire career, whether it was ESL or bilingual, mostly in one-way bilingual programs. But I did teach middle school as well for a while, and did Spanish language arts, and been a coach at the district level and also at the school level. As far as planning, because we're going into units today, the way I just wanted to share, the way I shared with you yesterday that it was hard for me to really grasp Literacy Squared for quite a while and how to plan for paired literacy. But When I became a dual language coach in the last school I was at before my PhD, I was there for 4 years where we were just implementing Literacy Squared. I worked with teachers, all of my bilingual teachers, every single week, and we did this rapid planning every single week for paired literacy. And that's really it's where I kind of honed my skills as far as how do I, because what I know all you feel, because I've been there, is that there's a million things to plan in very little time. So I just want to assure you that it did take me a while, but once I got there, I really was able, you get better and better and better at it as you start to kind of conceptualize it. And it is possible to plan good paired literacy units within your limited time, especially with all the resources you already have from SAISD. You have a great jumping off point. It's a lot more than I ever had. So I just want to assure you as we go through that you can do it. Eventually you will get there, but be patient with yourself too. If you're still struggling to kind of grasp it, it will come. It just takes a little bit of time. Thanks, Sue. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I know we still have folks joining us. So if you are just joining us, please be sure to sign in. The link is in the chat. We'll keep posting it. There is also a Padlet link. If you can't see that, we'll also keep posting it. The password for that is SAISD, and we're going to come back to that at the end and see what got added to it over the course of the next couple hours. So let's launch in. We don't really have a lot of time. So our guiding question for today, or guiding question really with any unit is how can we use what emerging bilingual children know in their two languages to get them on a trajectory, a positive trajectory toward biliteracy. And so we're going to use all of that, as I said earlier, all of the theoretical work that we went over yesterday, we're going to apply that to a first grade lesson. But beyond connecting environments, we need to talk about general literacy concepts, which is why we had you maybe read the pedagogical approaches as homework. If you didn't do it, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I reread them, and it's very interesting to me as a co-author of the text that every time I go in and read it, I go, huh, I forgot we said that, right? And so one of the things that made me smile is in the reading, when we talk about gradual release of responsibility, we make a point in the text of saying, well, we don't really talk about modeled reading. We talk about interactive, an interactive approach to reading. And yet every PD, including the one you're about to experience, has the word modeled in it. It's like we forgot that we didn't want to use that word, because it's really important to us that students are participating in it. We actually have research that shows that for bilingual learners in English, but bilingual learners, read aloud, just read aloud without the interactive part is not effective for them, not the way it is for English speakers. So for our bilingual learners who speak Spanish and English, there needs to be oracy and there needs to be an interactive piece, or it's not a very good use of their time. And I'm happy to point you to that research. In fact, it was cited in the reading yesterday. It's by O'Day, I think 2009. But it's very clear that some of the practices that we say are really strong practices in monolingual environments do not have the same effect for bilingual learners, right? And so that's why we moved away from the using modeled as one of our pieces of the guided release of responsibility. If I say GRR, that's what I'm referring to, guided release. So really quickly in the chat, when I say gradual release of responsibility, what occurs to you? What does that mean to you? Just type in the chat really quickly. And to Ms. Espinosa, I will absolutely get you that research. Jody, in fact, do you have the reference to the O'Day? It's 2009. I'll find it. I'll type it in.
I don't think I do at my fingertips.
Okay.
But if you send it to me, send me the name, I can find it.
Great. Okay, so what occurs to you when you hear gradual release of responsibility? You are a facilitator. You're starting to give independence. It is certainly about that. You're always building to independence. What else? think it's a way to gradually introduce the new skill that the student needs to learn. So that gradual piece, of course, is in the title, but it's really important because I think when we first started observing classrooms, what we kept seeing is people saying they were doing a gradual release, but what we saw was a sudden release, right? It was like we showed students how to do something and then we asked them to do it independently. There was nothing gradual about that at all. Scaffolding is essential. Absolutely, Ms. Gomez. Absolutely. So we lower the affective filter by doing together and build to independence. I love that. That is perfect, right? We want kids to see themselves as learners and we want to give them the scaffolds that make them see themselves as successful learners. That when they see the graphic organizer that they have to fill out, they've done it with us already. They have a sense of how to do it, right? But we're eventually working toward that independence. Good. It's about helping students to become self-learners, to be self-sufficient, to know what they can do. It's a way to introduce new concepts, a way that's safe. Oh, I love that word. It ultimately leads to independence, right? So I think we're all in agreement. It's always about getting to that independence piece. I think the piece we have to think about is that gradual. And what does gradual mean? I love this also, Ms. Lopez. This students are given gradual control of their learning. How beautiful is that, right? We're scaffolding, we provide a lot of support in the beginning, but what we want eventually is for them to have control of their learning and for the teacher to step away. We talk a lot in bilingual education about scaffolding for students. And what I think we don't point out often enough is that scaffolds are meant to come down, right? If you think about a scaffold as a metaphor, right? Painters use it when they're painting the side of your house. Eventually they're done, the scaffold comes down. That's what we should be doing in our classrooms, providing sufficient scaffolds for long enough, but not for forever. So here's how we often look at it, right? It's this idea of I being the teacher, I do or I model for you what it is I want you to do and know and learn and produce. Then we do it together in a shared fashion. Then I want you to do it with your peers collaboratively. And eventually, I want you to do it independently. Now, in traditional monolingual environments, often people talk about this as something that happens like in a class session, in a single day. I'm going to model and you're going to do it together. And by the end of this, 2-hour literacy block, you're going to have an independent piece of writing produced, or you're going to be reading independently. We don't think about it quite in that manner in Literacy Squared, right? So one of the features is that we use the guided release, but we have to think about which pieces are happening in which language and over what period of time, right? So we don't do it all in a single day. We look across a week. We look across a unit. We look to make sure that students have all of these experiences, that they eventually get to independence, but not that it happens on day 1 or day 2, right? We have a lot more modeled and shared and collaborative on the journey to independence. That's a little bit different maybe than how you learned about it in a teacher education program, right? So you can even think about some of this shared and collaborative work as really being very culturally relevant, right? That it's not about always being independent. And when you look at this, there's some other things to think about, like what is the role of phonics and phonemic awareness and word work, and where is that in all of this? Because we're often talking about this in terms of reading and writing. Those are still incorporated, but they're incorporated and modeled and shared with authentic reading and writing activities, right? So, and it's a tiny part, right? It's not the whole literacy program. So, but we have to address it. So I want to be super clear on that, especially in these lower grades. So you all are primarily kindergarten through 2nd grade teachers. We cannot ignore phonemic awareness, phonics, and word work. They just have to be in meaningful context and applied for authentic purposes, right? And used with authentic, so we're not doing worksheets, right? We're taking words from text students are encoding or decoding, and we're breaking them up into syllables if we're in Spanish, or we're showing patterns in either language, really. So we use them up. We use them up. Huh. No, we don't use them up. We use them all, but we spread them out over time and we divvy them up by language. So what we do not recommend is that you go from model to independent in a single lesson. And we also do not recommend that you try to do everything in each language. So if you think about both languages as comprising the entire literacy block, then what students are experiencing, all of it is their literacy time. So I can get them maybe to independent in Spanish, but not expect independence in English. Maybe I want them just doing collaborative work in English. Does that mean that they'll never get to independent? No, but it doesn't mean that I have to get them there for everything in both languages. If across a unit they're doing independent work in Spanish, but not in English, but you think about the literacy block as all tied together, they did independent work. They just did it in one language. Please stop me if this doesn't make sense, because I'm talking and sometimes I can't hear myself as well as you do. So I wanted you to see this as a way to think about this. This is a hypothetical first grade gradual release in reading. And what you see is all of this would be considered the literacy block, but across the top here, we have Spanish reading, where on the first day, maybe I'm introducing a text and I'm doing an interactive read aloud. And the next day I'm doing more shared reading, maybe even with the same text. Maybe we're pulling out excerpts that we're looking at that day. And there's a lot more student interaction and a lot more oracy that is linked very much to whatever my final product is going to be with them, or where I want them to go in terms of independence with reading. And then by Wednesday and Thursday, they're doing partner reading, right? And while they're doing partner reading, maybe I'm pulling small groups. You see here we have teacher-led small groups. So they're reading with partners or they're reading in groups. Maybe they're starting some independent reading by Thursday. They're doing independent reading on Friday. Across the course of the week, they're getting it all, right? They're getting the interactive read aloud. They're getting shared reading. They're doing work with their peers. They're doing independence. And you're getting to pull them for teacher-led small groups. But they're also getting additional reading during their English time. Maybe we're doing a different book, or we're using a bilingual book and we're using it differently, which is what you're going to see today. And they're getting another interactive read aloud. This means that in one week, they're having two different interactive read alouds, not one. They've got shared reading going on, but it's happening a couple different times. Sometimes it takes place in Spanish, sometimes it takes place in English. They're doing their lotta in this particular example. They're doing it in English, right? So think about how scaffolded that is. There's a read aloud on the first day. There's read aloud by teacher, followed by choral, echo, and partner. And then on day 2, choral, echo, and partner. And in day 3, choral, echo, and partner, linked always to oracy. So if you look at this as an entire week of literacy, both the Spanish and the English together, they're getting all of the pieces of the gradual, right? They're all there. So again, at the bottom of this slide, you see the reminders. The release happens across a week. That gradual release happens over a unit, not over a day. Independent reading at your grade levels, K through 2, we're only expecting in Spanish, but not in literacy-based ELD. So they're still reading, right? But they're doing more collaborative and interactive and shared in literacy-based ELD, a lot more supports, a lot more scaffolds. Small group reading instruction is only happening in Spanish, but they're all getting it, right? There's a time for it in the literacy block. Literacy-based ELD is more scaffolded and more supported, with the heavy lifting happening in Spanish. So one thing I want to call attention to, if you got to the reading, you read this, but I just want to reiterate it. And I also no shame or blame if you didn't get to it. We were together late last night and you had to teach today, so I get it. Small group reading, we intentionally call it teacher-led small groups rather than guided reading, because we separate ourselves from guided reading in the way that guided reading is traditionally asked of you. We don't look at it as leveled readers. Okay, we're not asking you to pull together a group that's all at a particular level. We want you to pull together groups by reading skills, by comprehension strategies, by interest, right? They can be heterogeneous groups. They could also be homogeneous groups. But if I have kids together that I think are at about the same level, I'm not asking them to read a single level. I'm asking them to read across a number of levels around a theme so that the language is repeated. Because the language all these kids are acquiring language, right? And so we're building their vocabulary, we're building their language. And you do that by reading beyond what they can read, by also reading in their instructional level. Maybe even giving them simple independent. There's so much more going on in the teacher-led small groups than a traditional guided reading group would allow, if that makes sense. So we're releasing across a longer period of time, but we have a lot of emphasis on whole group and interactive teaching. So when students spend a lot of time without the aid of a more competent writer or a more competent reader in a workshop, for example, they may not be working to the height of their potential. So teachers can really leverage whole group instruction to ensure that most students are in their zone of proximate development most of the time. It means a slower release to independence, but we're comfortable with that because what we see over the long term is our students performing at higher levels because they've had that direct and explicit instruction with a more able other, right? We also put a lot of emphasis on modeled, shared, and collaborative. So those are whole group instructional approaches in Literacy Squared that include explicit and interactive instruction. So we advocate for direct and explicit instruction much of the time. This is different than a workshop approach, which often involves a modeled lesson where kids immediately go to independence, right? I do a lesson on how to write a good lead in writing. And then I can say, go write on whatever you want. And I hope there's a good lead in your story, okay? We're not giving that much leeway to students. We're giving a lot more direction, a lot more scaffold, a lot more explicitness around what we expect. We also, again, we do teacher-led small groups, but we're not saying that every student has to have one all the time. They're recommended when students indicate a need for additional guidance with relation to whatever it is you've been teaching. So if you have 4 or 5 kids who seem like they're not quite getting what you're teaching in whole group, you pull them together for teacher-led small group for a little bit additional practice so that they can meet the objective. And at the end of all that comes independent work, right? Where students have gone all the way through the gradual release so that they have confidence in their skills and they're able to produce. I'm going to show you student work today from first graders, which I think is quite good and quite strong. So what you'll see in our book is these are our recommendations about the pedagogical approaches that you use by grade level. So if you look at kindergarten in Spanish literacy, we would say you should be doing interactive read aloud, shared reading, and teacher-led small groups. While when you get to your literacy-based ELD part, you're still doing interactive read alouds and shared reading, but you're not doing small group instruction there. You're not taking them to independence there. And look at first grade. On the Spanish side, interactive read aloud, shared reading, lotta, teacher-led small groups, collaborative reading, independent. We get to independence in Spanish, right? But in English, we're doing interactive read aloud, shared reading, lotta, and collaborative reading. We're not asking kids to read by themselves yet in English. Notice that lotta crosses both of them. You're not doing it in both languages every week, right? You're only doing it once or twice in a unit, and you'll do it once in Spanish and perhaps once in English. So hopefully that makes sense to you. I want to give you some time to think about that for a minute. But before doing that, I want to just reiterate a little bit of what we said yesterday about connecting literacy environments. So planning instruction has to thoughtfully attend to how to capitalize on reciprocal and mutually reinforcing nature of how what one learns in one language has a direct effect on what is learned in the other. You're going to see that today. And we want to maximize students' opportunities to engage in oracy, reading, and writing instruction in both languages. And you're going to see today in the unit that it kicks off with oracy before they even see the book. They start learning vocabulary and thinking about what is the language of the text before they ever do the read aloud. And finally, we know that while we talk about this as Spanish literacy and literacy-based ELD, there are moments that we really need to use language strategically. Languages have to come together sometimes. And so this is one way we talk about it is the quote on this slide. When language environments are planned so that all languages are understood to be resources that can be accessed and invoked strategically in service to language and literacy acquisition, space is created in which the deliberate and purposeful use of Spanish and/or English facilitates accelerated learning. When we can be strategic with language and quicken students' learning, accelerate their learning, that's when we want to bring two languages together. So really quickly, before I jump into the unit, I'm going to put you in breakout groups for a moment, and I want you to think about this. What do you want to think about and remember about the role of the various pedagogical approaches when you return to your classroom or to your coaching this Monday? What's different or what has been reinforced for you in what you're already doing? So I'm going to put you in the groups, and then I'm also going to give you a link to a Jamboard. And on the Jamboard, you can reflect your understandings. You can upvote people. So let me just show you what a Jamboard looks like. This is the Jamboard. You can see it has the questions, it has some sub questions. What's different about the Literacy Squared approach? Do you still have questions? Are you having reactions? Like, pay attention to your body. It will tell you if you're like okay with this or not okay with this. And then your tools are over here on the side. So you can put up a sticky note. You can change the colors of the sticky note. You can say, I have a question about da 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 da. Save it, and it will pop up on the screen, right? So you can see it, and you can move things around. And if you like what someone else wrote, you could go up to the pen, and if you click on it, you can decide on a color, and you could go here and go, oh my gosh, I have that same question, and I'm going to draw a little heart here, or I'm going to put a little star on it. So that's how the Jamboard works. I'm going to go ahead and put you in a room for about 5 minutes. It's going to be a pretty quick breakout session, just so you can talk about what you've heard. It was a lot of information very quickly.
And a reminder that these are on pages 41, I believe, and they're also in your folder, the PDFs of them as well.
I don't think I'm the host. I don't have breakout capability.
44.
Monica, can you give me the host?
Yes, so she is working on that.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I was answering the chat and I wasn't listening.
I have everything except breakout.
Yes, you've got all access.
Okay, let's see. There we are. Okay, I'm gonna put you in some breakout rooms. About 4 or 5 minutes. This will be fast. Talk, think, process, write. I'll be watching the Jamboard. What I don't know, oh, here, I can erase it here. Ooh, I'm having, my cursor's moving really slowly. I don't know why.
And my internet just told me it was unstable, so fingers crossed.
Well, I took a little bit longer on that than I planned, but I'll go quickly with the Spanish part of the thing. Okay, I don't know. It's doing weird things.
Huh. Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, and I can't delete it. Oh, well, that's okay. It'll just stay there. I can't move it now, like typically I can.
Strange.
There we go. Okay, now I can.
Yeah, my internet started to be unstable, so I closed your, like the Jamboard and
Good.
or Padlet, whatever we were using, and
Yeah.
I had to just close everything. And I was looking for that O'Day, but the one I found on from 2009 didn't talk about read aloud. So,
Okay, let me,
but just so we can.
it's in the, I have the book right here. I'm sure the.
Oh, it's in here.
Yeah.
Well, I could have found it from here. I was just randomly looking. Oh, that is the one I looked at.
Yeah, good instruction is good for everyone. It does have it in there.
Okay.
It does.
Well, then I
It
will.
talks about how it has no statistically significant impact on bilingual learners, but it does on it. So it has an impact, but it's not significant, while it is significant for native English speakers. I've read that article 1,000 times. Okay, I'm just gonna type it in.
Maybe I should see if I can go. I did it earlier, but I don't see anyone populating. So let me.
I know that
go
worries
there.
me. I wonder if we have another issue like yesterday.
I'm going to it right now to check. Yeah, I can do it. Well, yeah.
Okay, maybe they're just talking.
Oh, there we go. Okay, they're starting. Yeah.
Okay,
There we go.
good. I'm still typing out this reference. Oh, shoot, what did I do? 14:1, okay. Oh, oh no, she's recording. Okay, I was about to say, I think she forgot to hit record, but it is recording. Good.
Yours isn't populating, but mine is. So
I know, that's what I was just gonna
you
say.
might need to refresh.
Do I have to refresh?
Yeah, I would.
Ah, okay.
There we go. Thought it was in a lesson. That's
This
a
is,
common.
yeah. Well, that's because that's how it's taught, right? Like that's when I was a literacy coach and my district was providing me guidance, it was all monolingual guidance. And that was what we were told. That when I go in and observe a lesson, I should see that it's modeled and then it goes to shared and then eventually independent, and it happens all in a lesson. And it just, I don't think it's best practice for our bilingual learners at all.
A question about vocabulary.
How do you look? Okay, carefully so you not end up with a large selection. Okay.
That's hard.
It is really hard. And we can talk about the backwards planning, right? When I pull up the Spanish, because it starts with vocabulary, and it's vocabulary they use when they're writing. And you can't ever select everything. And so I will say that.
Okay.
Like the guidance I always give is what is the likelihood students will need to use or will encounter a particular word, and it should be weighted more heavily if they're going to use it.
They might have gotten, I mean, that you probably mentioned it when you did Oracy.
I usually
just wondering if it's in their shared folder. I'll check. Because usually you provide those lists too.
Right. But I haven't done a lot of work with San Antonio, so I don't know if other people have taken my work and done it, and like that presentation.
I was thinking though, the one you did at the big, I think you did the Oracy part when we did Oracy with this group.
Could be.
September, October.
I can't remember from one group to the other, which is terrible. I
My
always have to go
computer's-
back and look like, what have we done so far with this group, and then know what's coming up next, because every group is so close.
We should ask for you for Monica to add you to their shared drive, because that's a nice way to just see what they have what they have in their
Yeah.
drive.
So I've
See a
refreshed.
couple.
I just refreshed and I still see the same things. There are 6 breakout rooms. I wonder if I should go check in.
I'm sure they're just talking.
Oh, there's another one. I guess I could start with
I don't know
what I
that.
can do.
Oh, my computer is so slow. This worries me. I even texted my parents. Is anyone on the internet? Yeah, I do not see that list in here, so I don't think that so I wouldn't mention it.
Oh, here we have somebody coming in.
I got it. I don't know if I can. Oh, you're host now.
Uh-huh.
Hi,
'Cause I
Miss
need-
Claudia. Welcome. We are in breakout rooms, but just for probably another minute more.
Yeah, I'm about to call them back, so
So we'll leave you
I'm going to finish typing my answer here. We typically suggest that you evaluate the likelihood. Gosh, it's really typing slowly for me. Okay, I'm gonna give them a 1 minute, like they're closing, so we'll see.
Okay, I'm answering this other one. There we go.
Okay. All right, they're coming back.
I got kicked out of the whole thing. My computer, I guess my internet went off, so I had to re-log back in.
That's interesting because we're all like, I mean, clearly we're not in the same even geographical space, but Jody's computer is going slow, and I was trying to type answers on here and my computer was like one thing at a time. I'm like, oh, this is going to be an interesting afternoon.
Yeah, my voice started going robotic, and then I froze, and so.
Oh gosh. Well, we'll do the best we can with the technology we have. I guess that's all we can do. So I love the like, not a lot got typed into the Jamboard, but what's there I think is really important. So one of the first things posted was that in terms of gradual release of responsibility, we thought it was supposed to happen in a lesson, right? We thought the English and Spanish were separate, but now we see that we must integrate what we are learning, the skills together. That idea that it should all happen in a lesson is absolutely how we were all taught it was supposed to be way back in the day, right? So when I was a literacy coach and I was getting guidance from my district, this is what they told me to help my teachers to be able to do, to get all the way from model to independent in a lesson. It's not good practice for our bilingual learners. They need much more scaffolding. They need much more practice and regular practice with what we're trying to teach them. And it looks like Jody answered that. The other question here is, how do you select vocabulary carefully so that you do not end up with a large selection for both languages? It is tricky. I'm going to right up front admit that. But one of the things that I always use as my guidance when I'm looking at a book and I'm trying to think about, oh, I could choose X word or Y word, but I can't add 2 words because the list is already getting to be too many. I ask myself, what is the likelihood that students will need to use this word in the future, or that they will encounter it in the future? Are they going to read it a lot? Is it a very common word that they're going to, not just for this assignment, in their academic career, which word is more important to them? And so if I'm weighing one against the other, that's the criteria or the question that I ask myself, because we want long-term learning, right? We want students to have access to high power vocabulary that they will need to use and will encounter in the future. There's a question here that I cannot answer, and so I think it has to be leadership in SAISD. The question here is, can we change our schedule to put the whole literacy block together? Right now, at least mine is separate. And I don't know what guidance folks have around scheduling and planning. Would someone like to address that question?
Just from what we've had in the past, this is something we have recommended to administration whenever they're creating that master schedule, that it would be ideal to have that whole literacy block just together. It just facilitates it for the teacher. But because of labs and because of specials and because of certain things, a lot of the times that literacy block is broken up and teachers struggle. I know that for my campuses, the past 2 years is something that I speak to administration about when I go visit and introduce myself. But some campuses do. Some campuses are blessed and they have that whole block together, but most of them have a break in between, and it makes it very challenging.
Scheduling, I mean, that's the scheduling is just hard. It's just hard. I feel for principals and assistant principals when they're trying to figure out how the special schedule is going to work for everyone. And so it's complicated. I guess we all do the best we can with what we have. And then the other question is, which is very similar in some ways, is who do we talk to about making changes like this in our classroom? On some campuses, they want exit tickets for every lesson. Again, I cannot speak to.
I'm going to jump in, and last year that was a concern across a lot of campuses. Administration wanted exit tickets. So as we were creating our biliteracy unit lessons, most of us started incorporating an exit ticket daily connected to that TEAC, right? And just because of that, at least in some grade levels, we had that exit ticket connected because the principals wanted to make that connection. Doesn't mean that in that whole day you may finish that standard that you're teaching, but you're going to go back and reflect on that standard. What did the students master today based on the standard that I introduced? I understand, and sometimes when teachers hear exit ticket, they think it's a whole formal thing. But one of the things that we got to, or at least I got to talk to some administrators, sometimes they just want something written in a Post-it note on a piece of paper, and they pick it up just to see. That's your check for understanding. Did the student grasp the concept that we were teaching today? So when you all hear exit tickets, as long as you have something tied into that TEAC, that standard, most of the time administration is going to be okay with that. But that is something we try to incorporate. The second half of our lessons is adding those exit tickets in there.
And Claudia, you know what, Ms. Hopewell, let me add to that too, because I mean, I ditto everything that Claudia is saying, but just one more thing that I'd like to add too is one of the things that I share with teachers is that if you're new to the whole exit ticket concept, let your administrator know, hey, look, I just picked this up. I'm barely learning it. But you know what? Because sometimes my exit ticket was lining up the kids and asking them a quick, simple question.
Perfect.
Even in math, hey, what's 2 times 3? Boom. Okay, great. What's the meaning of addition or something simple like that? And they were going out the door to lunch. So if you let your administrator know too, I mean, they're pretty understanding about that. And eventually you'll get to that exit ticket that is written out. Then you can show them, something more
That's ideal. I mean, it's really
concrete.
It's really nice to hear you offer that idea of like, oh, a quick times table, a quick, right? Because that is an exit ticket. It's just not a written exit ticket. And it doesn't require a lot of time or energy or little pieces of paper. So that is nice. Thank you for sharing that. And because it happened to be you as the last speaker, I wanted to let you know that I have put the reference in the chat for everyone about the research I was citing earlier around read aloud. So the name of the article is Good Instruction is Good for Everyone, or Is It? English Language Learners in a Balanced Literacy Program. It's a huge study of, I believe, the entire school district in San Diego, where they disaggregated data by particular groups, but they also went into classrooms and like tallied what was going on, like how much time was spent in read aloud, how much time was spent in shared reading, how much time was spent in writing, and where was the payoff for particular groups. And so it's quantitative. If you don't like numbers, that part won't be fun, but you can see that there is a differential effect for read aloud between monolingual English speakers and bilingual learners. So that's there for you. We're going to go jump right back in. We're going to kick into the unit right now for basically the remaining time that we have. Let me get back to it. That's not it. Here. Okay. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for talking to your peers. It always helps, I think, to have that time with your peers. Here's an overview of the unit we're about to discuss with you. You will see that we're talking about just a portion of the overall literacy environment. Of course, the unit isn't everything, right? There are lots of things that have to happen in literacy. So as you see what I describe in the Spanish literacy lesson, what we're looking at is a 20 to 30 minute focus on the text in Spanish or on the lesson in Spanish, and a 20 to 30 minute approach in English. So in Spanish, we're doing whole group read aloud and interactive reading. There's a huge emphasis on oracy. So there's building and expanding vocabulary, really trying to get at that more sophisticated use of language through pre-planned language structures and dialogue. And then taking all of that reading into writing. So modeled, shared, collaborative, and independent writing that is based on the mentor text. Again, I'll show you each of those lessons quickly here in just a minute. Then simultaneously in literacy-based ELD, we are doing whole group shared reading and lotta, a repeated reading strategy with an adaptation of the text. So Jody will show you a bit about the adaptation, because remember, even though it's the same book, we're using it differently across language environments. Again, there's an emphasis on oracy, right? We're building and expanding vocabulary. We're doing pre-planned language structures and dialogue. And rather than having independent products, there's a shared writing experience in ELD. But you can see that we hit all of those pedagogical approaches across the two environments. Again, thinking about it as one literacy environment. So really quickly, I just took that same chart, and here's what I want to show you that is sometimes difficult. In Spanish, let's say we start on a Monday, right? We're going to be doing modeled and shared approaches. That's what this M and S are, right? And we're going to start on day one, and we're going to have a language focus. We're going to be working on antonyms. That's the oracy and vocabulary and concept that we need to work on so that the book makes sense. And we're going to start our dictado here. And we're going to do that across 3 days, but that might happen on Monday. And look, and in English, nothing's happening related to this book yet. It's a staggered start. This is the part that's hard sometimes. So the English doesn't come in till the 3rd day. They're going to have 2 days of experience with this text in Spanish before we start making the connections, because we want to build all of the content knowledge, vocabulary, concept development before we start scaffolding onto it. Does that mean nothing's happening in ELD? Not at all, right? So I have this here. We're doing other ELD literacy work. Maybe we're finishing the last unit, right? They're doing their final collaborative piece in those days from the previous unit. They're just not linking to Abuelita yet. So we have language focus, we have book introduction, etc. across the week. English jumps in on the 3rd day. This is the piece that's always hard to explain, which is why I put this in for you. that there's a staggered start, and then every day you're doing both all the way through. Let me know if that doesn't make sense. Type a question
And
in the
Sue,
chat. Yes.
sorry, this is Carlos.
Yeah.
This is not the way we've prepared our lessons.
Okay.
And we are actually trying to connect the text, and in our weekly lessons, they are built out. So there is that fluidity, or that paired literacy.
Okay.
So just to avoid any confusion, just wanted to share that with you.
It's, yeah, and I will tell you in general, with everything that, and this is what makes it hard, right? Good teaching and learning, we have to have flexibility, right? So if that's the way you have developed your lessons, that's fine, right? But in general, when we develop ours, we're really trying to plant some seeds in those first 2 experiences in Spanish, do the heavy cognitive lifting, so that when they come into English, they already know what an antonym is, right? I'm not trying to teach antonyms on Monday in Spanish and then immediately do it again in English, right? I'm waiting a couple days and then I'm bringing in antonyms. So it's just thinking thoughtfully about what did they experience in Spanish and when can I naturally build upon it in the other language so that it doesn't feel repetitive, it's not too much. So they've had 2 days with what does it mean to be an antonym? What is an opposite? By the time you get to English and you're doing opposites, conceptually, it's not about the concept anymore. It's just about the language, right? So that's
And
the thought process.
If I can add to that,
Please.
I think that's one of the ways our lessons are developed. Our heavy instruction is in the Spanish language, right? So when we do that on Monday, that text in English, it's going to be a read aloud, an introduction of vocabulary, not hitting whatever TEK we covered on Monday and Tuesday, we may cover during ELD on Thursday or Friday.
Perfect.
Or Wednesday. So we have it where it's not whatever standard we're teaching in English is a standard that has already been addressed during Spanish. So we're touching up again. So it may be that we finished with that standard the week prior on a Wednesday, we're touching it up again. So we do all of our heavy.
Actually, that's the exact same idea.
Okay.
That's the exact same idea. That's yeah. We're saying the same thing. You've just organized it slightly differently, but it's that idea that we're not like just reiterating the same thing again, because they've got a process. They have to sit with these things for a day or 2, right? So great. Thank you for jumping in. That's
Ms. Hopewell, quick question. Maybe I missed it, but what is that MS up on the top?
Sure. This is my
and the MSC.
It just means this is just modeled and shared. What are the pedagogical approaches I'm going to use? So modeled, shared, and then the C would be collaborative. And if I had gotten all the way to independent, there would be an I. It's just a sense of what are those gradual release pedagogies that are happening on each day. Jody, you typed that to me directly. Jody's going to put a key for you in the chat, but it came to me instead of to all of you. So that's coming so you can see it. So really quickly, I know we have break in 9 minutes, so I'm gonna move us along relatively quickly. Again, we're looking at a paired literacy instruction via a bilingual book. This lesson was created by Dr. Sandra Bulovsky. We always like to give credit where credit is due. And she co-taught it with Sandra Castor in Denver, bilingual teacher. And this is a 1st grade unit. So, there. So what you're going to see is that this lesson incorporates reading, writing, and oracy and meta language, the 4 components of the holistic biliteracy framework. You're going to notice the gradual release of responsibility. Please notice how things get repeated. Things like graphic organizers that they do first get modeled for them. Then they do it collaboratively. Then they bring it back independently, but it's the same graphic organizer. So by the time they get to independent work, they're very familiar with it. The mentor text gets adapted for use in literacy-based ELD. Jody will speak to that. I'm going to very quickly read you the book. I'm going to read it in Spanish. This book, there is a particular word in Spanish that I do everything I can in my life not to actually have to say. It does not roll off the tongue for me. I use a lot of circumlocution when I'm just speaking in my regular life. It shows up at least twice in this book, and it's going to show up later. So like, test yourself, see if you can figure out what the word is. I'll trip over other words, but there's one in particular that's so hard for me. So it's a beautiful book. Sit back. If you want to turn off your cameras for a minute and just listen, this would be a good time to do that. It's nice to give your eyes a break. La abuela de José ya es viejita cuando llega a vivir con él y su familia. Sus largas trenzas son muy grises. Es viejita, pero es vivaz. Abuelita duerme en el cuarto de José. Él mueve sus dinosaurios a un lado para hacer lugar para las velas de ella. Mueve su cama bajo la ventana para hacer lugar para la cama de ella. Mueve su ropa a un lado del closet para hacer lugar para la ropa de ella. Todo está un poco apretado, pero cuando ella le susurra cuentos en la oscuridad de la noche, a José no le molesta para nada. Abuelita siembra una huerta que ocupa la mitad del jardín y por eso José tiene que ir al parque a jugar al fútbol. Pero es divertido cosechar frijoles en su propia huerta y a José le gusta comer los elotes. Cuando las calabazas maduran, a José no le molesta la huerta para nada. Abuelita llena la casa de olores nuevos, quema incienso en su altar que le hace estornudar al gato. Llena los cuartos de rosas del jardín que le hacen estornudar al papá de José. Cocina chiles que les hacen estornudar a todos. Cuando ella empieza a hacer chocolate cada mañana y a llevárselo a José a la cama, él decide que los olores nuevos no le molesten para nada. La abuela de José ya es viejita cuando llega a vivir con él y su familia. Sus largas trenzas son muy grises y tiene surcos alrededor de la boca. Es viejita, pero es vivaz. Su piel está arrugado, pero es suave para besar. Por la mañana, abuelita se sienta bien callada en la mesa de la cocina con una taza de té de canela y en pantuflas, pero siempre está ocupada. Teje, hace tamales, dibuja con José y cuenta frijoles con su hermanita. Por la tarde, abuelita se acuesta en el sofá con su almohada especial, pero nunca está quieta. Lee el periódico, acaricia al gato, le escucha a José leer sus libros y le hace las trenzas a su hermanita. Por la noche, abuelita se mece en el porche de bata, pero jamás descansa. Despedaza tortillas para los pájaros, cuelga chiles en ristra. Le cuenta cuentos a José y le canta a su hermanita. La abuela de José ya es viejita cuando llega a vivir con él y su familia. Sus largas trenzas son muy grises. Tiene surcos alrededor de la boca y sus manos parecen dos ramas en otoño cuando se caen las hojas. Es viejita, pero es vivaz. Su piel está arrugada, pero es suave para besar. Ella es frágil, pero sus abrazos son fuertes. Abuelita dice que es demasiado vieja para seguir a José cuando él anda en su bici, aunque es bien rápido para perseguir al paletero. Cuando José va al parque con abuelita, tiene que caminar. Al principio extraña su bici, pero le gusta cuando abuelita le agarra de la mano y él siente la fuerza que fluye bajo su piel arrugada. Ella le enseña los nombres de los árboles y las flores que ven por el camino y José se asombra de lo mucho que se perdía apurándose en su bici. Abuelita dice que es demasiado viejo para aprender inglés, aunque habla perfectamente bien con el chofer del autobús. José tiene que hablar en español con abuelita. Al principio extraña sus palabras en inglés, pero después de un rato le empieza a gustar el sentir tanto español en su boca. Entonces abuelita empieza a enseñarle versos y a él le gustan tanto que los enseña a su hermanita. Abuelita dice que es demasiado vieja para la música de José, pero zapatea al ritmo de reggaetón cuando cree que él no mira. Después de cenar, abuelita siempre escoge la estación de radio. Al principio, sus viejas canciones mexicanas le dan sueño a José, pero después de un rato le encanta el sonido alegre, triste del acordeón. Entonces, para su sorpresa, su padre saca una guitarra y empieza a enseñarle a tocar las viejas canciones mexicanas que ya no le dan sueño. La abuela de José ya está viejita cuando llega a vivir con él y su familia. Sus largas trenzas son muy grises. Tiene surcos alrededor de la boca. Sus manos parecen dos ramas en el otoño cuando se caen las hojas. Y su voz tiembla tantito. Es viejito, pero es vivaz. Su piel está arrugada, pero es suave para besar. Es frágil, pero sus abrazos son fuertes. Su voz es suave, pero se oye claramente. Abuelita está llena de vida. Yay, this is my favorite book. I actually did much better on the word that I don't ever say. Any guesses?
Reggaeton.
No, that wasn't it.
Estornudar.
So estornudar is one, and the other one, alrededor. I cannot say that word. I do everything I can to avoid it. And last night when I was practicing this word, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm willing to do just about anything, but this word I have to do over Zoom with these people who are so much more bilingual than I am.
I had alrededor written down.
There you go. There you go. And it's going to come up more, unfortunately, for me.
But you're doing really good. This
Oh,
is
well, I
awesome.
appreciate it.
You're doing really well.
I figure that we all have to take risks. We ask our kids to take risks, and it is what it is. But it is, if I am speaking to you face to face, I will do everything I can not to use that word. I will describe things in great detail, not to have to say that. In any case, so hopefully that like at least gives you something to smile about. Okay, I have a ton left to do, and I'm supposed to be done, which I'm not. But we're going to get through. It is time for a break. So I don't want to keep us from the break. Let's take 10 minutes, come back right. We will start right at 5:10, and I will try to get really quickly, like just show you really quickly day by day what this looks like in Spanish so that Jody can jump in with the English and we don't take away your planning time. So 10 after, we'll see you back here. I'm sorry, Jody.
No, it's fine, Sue. I think this part is important, and my piece can go pretty quickly too. So we'll be okay.
Okay. I had some like kind of like, let's do this together things. We're not doing any of that. I'm just going to like day 1, day 2, day 3, and just point out the different pieces. So
that's fine. That's
I'll
fine.
do it.
We'll be okay. Okay. I'm going to take a quick break.
Okay. Yeah, me too. Actually, I'm going to make a cup of tea really quickly. Oh, if I can. Maria's back with us.
Oh, great. Welcome
Yeah.
back, Maria.
It's great. There she is. Did
I'm back.
you have a good meeting?
Yes, we did.
Good. It's funny because right at 5 o'clock, I was like, oh, she's going to come back and we're on break.
That's what I figured.
Well, we're behind and it's my fault. I will go quickly. Okay, well, it is 4:10. I'm going to go ahead and get us started. I know people will be wandering in back slowly. Because I encourage you to turn off your video cameras as I did the read aloud. I don't know who's behind the camera and who's not. I do see a little thumbs up emoji for someone, so I know they're there, even though I can't see them. But let's kick off and get started. I see it. Well, look, all kinds of them now. Boy, you mentioned something. And everybody does it. I'm going to move relatively quickly through this next part. Like I said, I was going to be done right at break, and I'm not even close. So, and I'm going to try not to talk as much as I usually do. If you came late, I just want to remind you that you do need to sign in for today. And if you didn't get a chance to respond on the Padlet, you can go ahead and do that while you're listening. Both of those links are in the chat yet again to make sure that everyone had the opportunity. As always, our lessons are standards based. And so I'm not going to read you all of this because, as I said, I'm going to move a little more quickly, and you know from standards. I know you know from standards. So when they were creating this lesson, they were really looking at this idea that in reading, kids needed to be able to describe characters from a story. And this book, of course, lends itself to description, right? And to do compare and contrast. So those are the big ideas. And within the writing standards, they had to write an explanatory piece and an opinion piece. And you'll see how those link. Within your own year at a glance antiques, in your upcoming unit on influencias, right, or influences, here are some of the standards or tiques that might lend themselves to this unit, right? Creating mental images to deepen understanding, to connect to personal experiences or ideas and texts, to make inferences and use evidence, etc. So you have the link to this actual lesson. It's fully written out for you if you choose to take it up and think about doing it with your own students. But this is how you would have to think about your TEKS as opposed to Common Core standards. In terms of, well, every unit we do always has a very strong link to oracy. And so the oracy objectives during Spanish literacy and oracy time in general are to do self-to-text connections, to analyze characters in a book, to write a descriptive text about a character, and to make inferences. And then we want to be sure that students understand how to formulate sentences that communicate opposite meanings, right? We're going to look at antonyms and opposites, right? And acquiring vocabulary that expresses those opposites. So from the book that you just heard with the descriptions about grandma, es frágil, pero también es fuerte. Puede que sea bueno, pero a la vez malo, no? So they have all of those kinds of contradictory descriptions that they hold. We always begin with the end in mind. So we always want to think about what is the final product we want students to produce and how are we going to scaffold to get there? That's that gradual release, right? Because the independent product is the final product. So what does the student need to know about reading and about writing in order to produce the final product? So I'm going to start by showing you a final product intentionally so that you can think about how we get to this point. So this is a first grader at the end of this unit writing about his own grandfather, right? We're doing text to self, this connection to himself. And here's what he's written. The title is Todo sobre mi abuelo. Mi abuelo es viejito, pero cuida su rancho. A él le gustaba montar su caballo. Mi abuelo tiene bigotes y barba. Mi mamá se quedaba las noches con ellos y mis abuelito. Mi abuelo es viejito, pero cuida su rancho. right? So he's trying to follow some of what the book did in terms of language, but this is a solid product, right? For a first grader in relation to a text that he has read. You'll get to see some of what they do in both languages. But I want you to see that because I want you to see how we build to that. We start with oracy objectives, right? So what are the linguistic structures, the sentence frames that we need to help students to have, and what vocabulary do we want them to have so they can be successful? So we want them to do comparisons. Blank es blank, pero es, right? Like they're this one thing, but they're also something else. Aunque sea blank es, and inferencias. Pienso que blank es blank porque, or por eso, right? What is my evidence? How am I using evidence to defend my statement? And then we want to teach the word antónimos, but we also want to take some of the writing from the text. Vivaz, susurra, madura, incienso, estar quieta, etc. Fluye, I love that word. As much as I hate the other word, I love that word. Here's an example of some of the work they did on vocabulary. What you can see is the words that got taken out from the text. They all have an image to go with them. And then with the students, they came up with the definition. So you'll say vivaz, and there's a kid like waving his hands, right? And the two things that are written there are tener mucha energía or aprender rápidamente, right? This is, again, developing it with the children so that they have some connection. Surcos, arrugas en el rastro. Frágil, se rompe con facilidad, es débil, etc. So we begin not with the text, we begin with the idea of the oracy and the concept of expressing opposites. We also have a dictado, the teaching points you can see have been highlighted here. The title is Abuelito, el abuelo de Marta es mayor de edad. Abuelito dice que es demasiado viejo para jugar fútbol, aunque zapatea con mucha fuerza cuando baila, right? Reflects on the language of the story. It expands their vocabulary. There are very clear teaching points, the use of the commas in here, the idea of pivoting on that word, aunque, and they're going to get to do this all week. It will help them not only with the reading of the text, but with their writing when they get to that point. On the first day in Spanish, they're really just reflecting about language. How do we express antonyms? What does it mean to talk about opposites? So they're going to be formulating sentences and anticipating the changes that they need to make so that they can express that contradiction. And in a modeled way, the teacher's going to write the sentences or opposites using a T-chart. So it's very interactive working with them. This lesson actually comes from the ficheros out of the CEP in Mexico. We have a link to all the ficheros if you want to go look at them, but they're terrific resources for what is expected of a first grade student in Mexico. This lesson in particular is about teaching antonyms, and it begins much like we would talk about total physical response. So the teacher starts by saying, Jose, go close the door, right? And he closes the door and the teacher writes it. And as they're writing the sentences, they're looking at wordness, they're looking at sounds. Remember how I said all that phonics and word work happens in a meaningful context? And then they say, ay, Jose, abre la puerta, right? And through those actions, they start looking at opposites, right? And they build the opposites. And as they're building them, they're writing these sentences. So we're going to do that same kind of work with our students, noting the relationship between the words and the action. Okay, so first day is all focused on language. Second day, we're getting into the book. Right? We want to activate their prior knowledge. What are their connections to the text? You know, we're going to ask them about their grandparents. What are their grandparents like? What do they look like? What do they like to do? We're going to have dialogue. Students are going to be talking to each other. Again, oracy before the reading, oracy after the reading, oracy during the reading, lots of talk. ¿Cómo son tus abuelos? ¿Qué cosas hacen tus abuelos? ¿Qué cosas haces tú con tus abuelos? We're going to do lots of modeling. They're going to do group work. You're going to do this in whole group. Se escriben algunas de las palabras, frases que se utilizaron. So you're going to be recording. Teacher's going to record what the students are saying, and then they're going to try to figure out what the opposite of that might be. Right? So if my grandparents are really loving, what would the opposite be of that? And while doing that, doing lots of concepts about print. What is a long word versus a short word? What is the first sound in a word versus the last sound in a word? So all of that word work that we have to do is coming up while we're also doing oracy instruction. So we're not going to do this. I was going to ask you about your own grandparents, but we're skipping that. Here's a list of what students said, when they were talking about their parents. Pues es muy chistoso, es trabajador, es feliz, contenta. You can put words together. We can talk about synonyms and antonyms. Once the list on the left is done, then we go into the right and say, well, what's the opposite? If a person isn't chistosa, ¿qué otra manera podemos usar para describirlo, right? How will we describe them if they're not that? And so we're creating this chart with those tensions and opposites because they're going to use this when they're doing their own writing, right? We're getting to their own product. Still on day 2. Remember, I'm just walking you through like 7, 8, 9 days, right? So we start with just language. Day 2. We go back to opposites, but we link it to themselves. And now we introduce the book, Abuelita Llena de Vida. And we practice some oral language. We talk about Abuelita es viejita, pero es vivaz. ¿Qué quiere decir eso, right? Like we put all this in. And we do the interactive read aloud. And we have a conversation around the book. ¿Cómo te sentirías si tuvieras que compartir tu cuarto con tu abuela o abuelo? Semejanzas y diferencias entre la abuelita de José y la abuela de los alumnos, right? So from the text to our lives, from our lives to the text, we're always scaffolding so that they understand more deeply. And then we're working on these oral language structures. ¿Tu abuelo o abuela es como la abuela de José? Bueno, sí, mi abuela se parece a la abuelita de José en qué, or no es como la abuelita de José por qué, right? Lots of structures to help them express comprehension and link to their own lives. Day 3, we're still in Spanish, right? So we start with oracy. Now we continue oracy. We've read the book aloud. We've had a conversation about it. Now we're going to have some more directed conversation. And we talk about how the author describes the grandmother, right? How is she using antonyms and comparisons? And we have this language structure that they're using, that we would ask the children to use. Es viejito, pero es vivaz. Su piel está arrugada, pero es suave para besar, right? So we're showing them with the words highlighted in red, how you would plug them into this sentence structure. Jody's made a note in the chat about the difference between a day and a session. That's important. Take a look at it. And then we would just read certain parts of the book. We don't have to read the whole thing. They know the story. Let's really look at where the author is using antonyms and what is the language associated with that. Here are some examples of the words that they used, right? We're going to describe characters in a book. La abuelita de José es, and the kids come up with all these words and teachers writing them down and putting them on the chart because the kids are going to use them when they're talking and they're going to use them when they go into their writing. Also on this 3rd day, they're being introduced to this graphic organizer. Please notice that this graphic organizer comes up and comes up and comes up. It's not a one and done. We're going to do it together on day 3. If we're going to talk about the grandmother, we're going to describe the grandmother. ¿Cómo se ve? Right? What does she look like? ¿Qué hace? What does she do? What does she do with José as opposed to just her own thing, right? And we're going to fill that out in an interactive way so that they're 1, reflecting on the book, and 2, learning to use the graphic organizer. So here are some ideas of what may have come up, and you'll see that it says we're doing modeled and shared at this point. Pues cómo se ve, su piel está arrugada, tiene trenzas largas y grises, lleva lentes, right? It doesn't have to be just what was in the text. It can be things you see in the pictures, right? ¿Qué hace? Siembra una huerta, cocina, hace tamales, right? So we're just using the graphic organizer at this point about the grandmother, who's the primary person in the text and is described very concretely in the text. So here it is filled out as a chart that the teacher has done with the children. Day 4, we're going to again do shared writing about and a descriptive text about the grandmother. And they're going to think about what's the message they want to share, who's their audience. They're going to develop the text, they're going to write it, thinking about the different language structures. They've been practicing for 3 days now, right? The vocabulary and the language structure should come back into this, right? They should be using antonyms. They should be making comparisons. They should be using proper punctuation. It's not just our lesson, but they've been doing the dictado, right? So we want all of this. This is accountability for what's been taught for 3 days. We return to read to make sure that they all understand. After they've done it, we return to read to make sure everything makes sense. We make revisions, we correct, etc. Still writing about the grandmother. Here's an example of something that they might have written together. La abuela de José es viejito, pero es vivaz. Es viejito porque tiene la piel arrugada y tiene trenzas muy grises. Anda en pantuflas, pero siempre está ocupada. Cocina, hace tamales, cuelga chiles en ristra. Con José camina en el parque y baila. Abuelita está llena de vida. It's a summary, right? But it's using the language that they've been working on for 4 days. Here's another example where they're calling attention to what is the role of the word pero, that's the pivot word, right? That what you just said about the grandmother, you're going to say something that's the opposite after the word pero. Day 5, we did all that work on grandma. Now we're going to do something on Jose. We're going to do the same kind of work, but now we have a new character to describe, and we're going to have to do inferences because he's not described with the same level of detail. So what do we know about Jose, and then how do we describe him from there? So we're still going to be making lists of descriptive words. We're going to use the same graphic organizer, right? So in groups, they're going to be using that graphic organizer. So now it's not teacher and students. Now it's student and student using the same graphic organizer. ¿Qué hace? ¿Cómo es? Right? ¿Qué hace con la abuela? I'm going to use that same structure, but we're now releasing it to collaborative, where we were doing it all together at first. So let's, here it is, right? Here's one example, right? ¿Cómo se ve? And this, we're not talking about grandma anymore. Es un niño, tiene la piel suave, contento, sus ojos brillan y son vivaz, right? They're trying to adapt the language that they heard about grandma. Tiene el pelo negro, tiene piel claro. What does he do? Juega fútbol, anda en bici, mueva sus cosas. Él come helado. I think it said elote. But there was the popsicle guy, right? So they're making inferences from what they read, but this time with less scaffold. Some scaffold, but less. Here's an example of one of the students holding up the written product about Jose. He's using the linguistic structures of comparison. The teacher gave them the first sentence, so all of them start the exact same way, but then the students build it out with their partners differently. So this one says, aunque José es juguetón, es tierna. Tiene el pelo negro y piel clara. Es un niño feliz, sus ojos brillan. José juega fútbol y come chile con su abuelita. Su abuelita es vivaz, pero José debe mover sus cosas a un lado para que su abuela pueda caber y dormir. Aunque José es juguetón, es tierna. Right? So starts and ends with the same sentence, following the structure of the book, but the in-between part, they get to play with all the language they've been learning. Here's another one. Again, starts the same way because everyone started the same way. Aunque José es juguetón, es tierna. Tiene el pelo negro, su piel es clara. Antes, José usaba la bici, pero ahora ya no puede, ya no, porque la abuelita camina. Cuando la abuelita le da besos, pero a José le gusta mucho porque se siente suaves los besos y la piel. And then I love this because he used the same sentence, but now he makes it a question. Aunque José es juguetón, es tierna. Like, who knows why that suddenly became a question at the end? I really struggled the first time I read this with the ya no, because he spelled it J-A-N-O, ya no. And I was like, what is he saying? But I had to say it out loud. And I was like, oh, okay, ya no. I get it. Love reading kids writing. Okay, so moving on, because I want to move quickly. Please type questions if you have them. I know Jody's typing some clarifications. So now they did it with the teacher in the beginning on the grandmother. They did it collaboratively with their peers about Jose. Now we're moving to independent. And now they're going to write about their own grandparents. They're going to bring in photographs of their grandparents and all the things that they've been scaffolded into understanding about antonyms and opposites and expressing opposites are going to go into the products they write about their own grandparents, which I read you one at the very beginning, right? But each one is going to use descriptive phrasing and descriptive words to describe their grandparents. They're going to use the exact same graphic organizer. Now they will have done it for a third time. You could pull this out in science or some other subject matter. They understand it. It's, again, not one and done. Scaffolding means we repeat, we revisit until it truly is independent. And this is where the kids are showing us it's independent. Can they fill it out on their own grandparents by themselves? So here is an example of another final product. I read you one at the beginning, but here's another one. Let me get it so I can see it. Mi abuelito es bonito. Mi abuelito juega en Nintendo Mario. Lo matan, pero yo gano. A mi abuelito no le gusta su nueva ropa, pero a mí sí me gusta su ropa. Cuida su burro, su vaca y su chivo. Mi abuelo me da, and the word they've written here is peliscones, but I think it's like, you know, grabs their cheek. I don't know what the actual Spanish word was they wanted. So me da, quién sabe qué, en los cachetes. Juega escondidos conmigo. Se ve bonito con su pelo blanco. Come sopa conmigo. Es viejo, pero juega conmigo. So you can see, like, at the independent stage, the student has tried to use that pero to, like, is this one thing, what is this other? Does a very nice description, solid writing based on the literacy and the oracy connections that he or she has had. And there's the picture of the grandparents. And so now, like, knowing that that's what happened in Spanish, where we want the heavy lifting and the cognitive load, I'm going to pass it to Jody to show you how it's being built upon in literacy-based ELD.
Thank you, Sue, for giving me the foundation there. While we're switching over, like I did yesterday, it's really important to look away from the screen. So let's take 10 seconds to stand up, stretch your arms, move your wrists, look away from the screen, do what you need to do. I think you need to give yourself a little pep talk, like, all right, we can do this. We have about 45 more minutes, less than 45 minutes, and you're going to get planning here in just about 15 minutes. So give yourself a pep talk, look away. I'm going to share my screen while you're all doing that, and I'll let you know verbally when we're ready to start again. Maybe if I can get this, there we go. Okay, can you see my screen, Sue?
Yes, sorry, I was muted.
No worries.
Yep, it looks great.
Sorry, I keep moving this instead of this. Okay. Okay, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Okay, everyone, we're gonna come back and get going here. I'm gonna ask everyone to put on their seatbelts because we're gonna fly, okay? We're gonna fly through the English. I know you're done. It's been a long week, you're ready. But we do wanna go through the English to help you make connections and see how all of this might work in an actual unit. But we also wanna give you some planning time. So that's why I tell you to put on your seatbelts because I'm gonna fly through the English here. Please use the chat if you have questions, and Sue will be monitoring that as well. And unfortunately, I'm not going to do a whole lot of. I had some fun interaction things, but I think you're kind of done. I don't know about you, but so we're just going to go for it. All right, so here we go. All right, so I'm going to be going through the literacy-based ELD piece with you all, and if my keyboard will work here. In the English, okay, remember yesterday, we're going to be using the bilingual book, but for different purposes. You're going to see some connections, but here we're going to be working on retelling the story in English, comparing and contrasting characters, writing a very short little opinion piece, and increasing our fluency, as we always like to do in first grade. For Aura C, we're going to use descriptive language for that compare contrast. We're going to ask and answer questions about the text, and also really hone in on pronouns. We all know how hard pronouns are for students acquiring English, so we're going to focus on that as well. These are in the lesson plan, but I just wanted to point out that these are some of the structures you're going to see throughout the English. There's this structure in the book, she is too old but blank, and he doesn't mind one bit. You're going to see that, so we want to make sure they understand that. But these are real hot spots right here. We're going to work on the language of comparing and similarities. And you're going to see that that changes whether or not you're using an adjective or an action. So we want to show kids how that works, and then some vocabulary from the unit. Now, as Sue mentioned, this is a slightly different graphic. We were thinking the same thing when we were planning, Sue. But in Spanish, you just saw day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, etc. I am going to start the lesson on day 3. So you're going to see it. It says day 3 of unit, but really it's the first day that we're introducing the abuelita in English. So hopefully that makes sense to you. And if not, then you can look back on the lesson plan and kind of sit with it, and it probably will start to make sense. So day 3 of the unit, which is day 1 of literacy-based ELD, the purpose is to connect to background knowledge and build language. So again, just like in Spanish, they're not even looking at the text yet. We're just connecting to background knowledge. The kids already read abuelita in Spanish. So now we want to figure out what they know about it. And you're going to be engaging them in dialogue. So you're going to be asking some information about abuelita in English, and you're going to allow them to answer in Spanish if they want here, because really this is kind of like a formative assessment. You're seeing what kind of language that they already control, what might be too difficult for them, where you might need to adjust your lessons. Sometimes we have to back up. So you're going to be collecting information like this from the kids. What do you know about abuelita? And they're going to give you some answers such as these. You're going to also start to build in some of these adjectives and actions as well. Okay. I want to point out that in the lesson plan that there is a reference to a song called Grandma's Coming. Unfortunately, I don't know if the site got sued or something. The site doesn't exist anymore. So you actually can't find the song anymore. So it's optional, but we all know that songs and chants and finger plays, they're such fun ways to build language. So if you know of a great song or chant or finger play that can build some vocabulary about grandma, that would be a nice addition, but it's not necessary. So day 4, we're going to move on, and today's purpose is to introduce the text in English, and it's going to be an adapted text. It was a text that was specifically adapted for literacy-based ELD, and the modifications were made to the text not to shorten it, first of all, because you all know how little time you have. In fact, yesterday, some of you were sharing that you're having trouble getting to the ELD part of your days, which is just the reality. It's hard sometimes. So an adapted text helps us make it slightly shorter. It also makes sure we're not being duplicative across language environments. And we can account for the linguistic complexity. So that means we don't want to dumb it down and make it too watery, but we can really focus the language that we want students to focus on. And you'll see in this adapted text, it has a predictable pattern, which is going to really help kids attend to that language. And then also we want to just orient students to that adapted text. All the great things you do when you introduce text, you're going to do here. And we're going to be making sure everyone understands this language of he doesn't mind one bit and she is too old but. We're going to be going over some vocabulary and then cross-language connection. You might ask, because they're going to see abuelita used again. You might want to ask the kids, why do you think that the author's using abuelita and not grandma, the word grandma here? So that's a really great opportunity for some meta language. So I'm going to share with you the adapted text for Abuelita Full of Life. I actually put this full PDF in your folder, so you can have access to it later if you would like to use it. So Abuelita is old, but she is lively. Abuelita sleeps in Jose's bedroom. Jose has to move his things, but he doesn't mind one bit. Abuelita plants a garden. Jose has to play soccer at the park, but he doesn't mind one bit. Abuelita and Jose color together. Abuelita and Jose read together. Abuelita says she is too old to ride a bike, but she can chase the ice cream man. Abuelita says she is too old to learn English, but she can talk to the bus driver. Abuelita says she is too old for Jose's music, but she dances to his reggaeton. Abuelita is old, but she is lively. Okay, so that's it for the adapted text. So what you're going to actually do with that adapted text is do a lara lara. So for the next 3 days, they're going to do a lara lara. We talked about that the last time we were here with you all. And as you also know, that the most important part of lara lara is oracy. So on this day, the oracy is going to be asking and answering about their favorite character. And you can keep a chart of this. You're going to want to chart all of this because you're going to see, just like Sue's, you're going to keep repeating some of this language. Okay. You can ask some questions for accountability that they're listening. Day 5, we're moving on to retell. That's going to be the purpose of today. Again, you're doing lara lara, but note how the oracy is a bit different. You're asking questions about what happened in the text because these questions are going to lead up to that retell. They're going to help kids with that language. After you do all of the oracy, you're going to do a shared writing of the retell. Okay, so this is an example of what that might look like. In the book, Abuelita Full of Life, Abuelita moves into Jose's house. Abuelita is old, but she is lively. She plants a garden, she cooks, she sips her tea, and she knits. Jose and Abuelita read books together. They sing together. They dance together. Abuelita is old, but she is lively. Okay, so that's just an example, and that you could be much more simple if that's where your kids are at, or more advanced. Moving on, you're using all of that great information about Jose and Abuelita to now compare. Okay, so you're gonna do the lara lara again, so they're working on that fluency, but this time the oracy is gonna be on compare and contrast. You can start that concept with concrete examples in your classroom with the kids possibly, like Kimberly is a girl, but Juan is not. Miss Cardenas drives, but Mateo does not, etc. And then you're going to create a Venn diagram with the kids about how Abuelita and Jose are the same and different. So here's an example of that. You're going to be asking them questions and creating this together. Okay, note that there's different language structures for what they look like compared to what they do. Here's what it looked like in the classroom. Then you're going to use that Venn diagram to build the language. Okay, and I'm actually going to click through this because I have a better example here. So you're going to ask how are Abuelita and Jose the same, and you're going to help them. You're going to use this, and you're going to have them answer. Abuelita and Jose are family members or something for actions. Abuelita and Jose color together. Okay, so you'll use that Venn diagram to compare, and then you're going to move on to contrast. Okay, and this is our language structures. Abuelita is blank, but Jose is not. Or you can add whereas and however. We're going to increase the complexity of their language here. Once you've done all of this oracy, you're going to do the model opinion piece. You're going to put that into actual writing with the kids. Okay, so this is an example. In the book Abuelita Full of Life, there are two main characters, Abuelita and Jose. Abuelita is old, whereas Jose is not. Abuelita and Jose read books together. My favorite character is Abuelita because she is old but dances reggaeton. So you can see here, whoops, I don't know how you can see how the teacher is adding the comparisons, but then at the end adds the opinion, okay, as a model. Now, day 8, you're going to use all of that language that you created. You should have some really good anchor charts, right, of all of that language. And you can now use that language to extend some language learning. So you can teach students how to use pronouns. If you have lots of lists of Abuelita is blank, Jose is blank, you can then show them how you would replace the proper noun with a pronoun, okay? And then you can get into even more complex language with transformation. So you have all of the sentences about Jose and Abuelita. Now the kids can ask each other, is Jose old? No, he is not. Is Abuelita young? No, she is not. Or yes, she is. Do Abuelita and Jose sing together? Yes, they do. And that is very complex. So you all know if you've taught those structures, they seem simple, but they are complex, but you've built enough language to be able to do that. Okay. And then the students will take all of that language and they're going to write their own opinion piece based on the teacher's model from yesterday. So you can see, just like in Sue's version, there's lots of recycling that goes on, lots of modeled, shared, collaborative here to get kids to be able to do this. I just want to show you the English dictado. It's Abuelito sings, Marta and Grandpa dance together. Abuelito likes to sing, but Marta does not. He sings Las Mañanitas to her. So you can see just by what I just shared with you, there's a lot of connection with what we've been doing in the unit. You can see how that dictado matches with pronouns and the comparisons and some code switching, etc. Okay, that's an example of a student's dictado. Okay. All right. We have one giveaway. It's going to be very fast before we put you in groups. So what did you notice about the ways the Spanish and English were connected in this unit? Hopefully you had your seatbelts on and can kind of catch one or two things. So go ahead and type in the chat. We'll do a giveaway. What did you notice about the ways Spanish and English were connected during the Abuelita unit using that bilingual book? And it can be something very simple. It could be one thing that you noticed that made the connection. So I'm going to give you an example, okay, just to get the juices flowing here. Sue, in the Spanish piece, showed a graphic organizer where it had Abuelita and what she did and what they did together, I believe. Or no, what she looked like and then what she did. That same graphic organizer came up again in English, or the same language, right? But in English. So what did they do? And then we extended it to what did they do together, okay? Thank you, Ms. Claribel. In Spanish, you describe the characters, and in English, you compare and contrast, right? Okay, language structure.
Mm-hmm.
The scaffolding in Spanish, yes, did that heavier lifting, so we had less of a cognitive load.
Adjectives and personal connections, perfect.
Great.
Concepts are the same.
Yes. Okay.
Here in using the bilingual book, it is the same story, but it's in both languages, and you all cover different TEKs, different standards, which is one of the things we've told our teachers. If you're going to use the same book, it's a bilingual book that's in both languages, it's okay for you to do that as long as you're covering different standards, you know, in both languages. And you make those connections and you make sure that those standards build upon each other in the Spanish and the English.
Exactly. All right.
That's really important because in the English, you're really building language, but the story's already known, right? They experienced it. Building background knowledge by doing it in Spanish, nice, and then bringing it in English.
All right, I'm pulling a number, and my number is, I dropped it. Number 2.
2, okay. Mrs. Hernandez, who said the language structures are similar across languages.
Mrs. Hernandez, thank you. If you will private message Maria Ruiz Martinez with your address, and we will make sure that you get a prize. Okay.
Congratulations.
Rachel, did you play
Ms. Tucker, is very kind of you to say you won yesterday, so not you, but actually we just don't let you win on the same day. You could have won today. It would have been fine.
Yes. Okay, wonderful. Well, let's move on, Sue.
Okay, so we're going to give you about 20 minutes to go into breakout rooms to work. I've labeled the breakout. You can self-select into a room. They're just labeled like there are 3 or 4 first grade rooms, 3 or 4 second grade rooms, kinder, other, etc. They're like 16 rooms. When you hover over you'll get to see like if somebody's already in a room and you want to join them, you can do that. Or if you just want to go to one that doesn't have anyone, you can do that. We will pop in and out. But once you're in a room, you can look where it says breakout rooms. You can ask for somebody to come to your room to help, to sit with you and talk it through. So please do that, but we can only see it if we're in this main room. So if we're in breakout rooms, we may not see it right away, just so you know what's going on. But we'll call you back with about 4 or 5 minutes left for today. So I'm gonna go ahead and open the rooms.
And
if you're having trouble getting in, let me know.
Mr. Carlos, did you have anything you wanted to tell the teachers before or any of the instructional specialists? I know you all were kind of prepared for this piece.
Yes, we are informed and ready to go.
Okay, so they're willing, they want to answer any questions you might have about planning. This is a great time to get their ear to ask any questions you might have of your specialists.
Thank you, Jody.
So you should be able to self-select into a room at this point. If you go to breakout rooms, it should give you the options.
So you have to actually go into your breakout room.
Which should be across the bottom of your Zoom.
Oh, gotta scroll down.
Yeah, scroll down at the bottom, and then you hover over the number on the right-hand side, and it should allow you to join.
Ah, yes. Okay.
Do you all see that?
I see that, yes.
Yeah.
People are starting to get in, so I'm seeing some numbers populate, which is great. If you have a friend you want to join you, private message them and pick a room.
And instructional specialists, if we can divide and conquer.
Perfect. Perfect. And you know, if all the second grade teachers go together or all the kinder teachers go together, that's great, right? They can have a joint conversation about where to go with all this. I see we've got a kinder room with 3 people in it. That's terrific. And some people may be choosing to be by themselves. That's also okay, right? Like whatever your work style is.
Okay, I want to be with Miss Tucker, but I don't know how to do it.
Okay, hold on. I'll tell you. Let's see.
She's in kinder.
I know, but I think I have to assign. So this is Miss Hernandez. You want to be with Miss Tucker?
Yes.
Okay, I think I can do that because I can see it all on my end. So you must be at the top up here. Unassigned, Miss Hernandez, assigned to. Okay, let me make sure I'm giving you the right room. Yes. Okay, I realized that I did something that makes my life more complicated that I will do differently next time, but,
You'll have to share.
huh. It's not letting me assign you. Oh,
Let
here.
me see if I
Assign to,
can.
okay, it is now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you should be going to that room. If it's wrong, leave and come back and I'll reassign you. I
Okay.
should have called them first grade number 1, first grade number 2, first grade number 3, but because they have the same names, then it's tricky.
Yep, I see.
Okay, I'm gonna join the kinder teachers.
Okay. Thank you,
Okay,
Claribel.
they're all together,
Thank you.
which is perfect. Then there's
I
another
need
group
help
called,
joining.
Okay.
I'll
Uh,
join at first grade.
Well, yeah, I wanted to be with Miss Lopez, who's with my.
okay, hold on, let me find, I'll find Miss Lopez for you. Hold on. Let me figure out where. Okay, oh, she's in
She's in
another room all
other.
by herself, so I can do
Okay.
that for you. Hold on.
Perfect. Thank you.
I will assign you. Miss Galvin, assign to, oh, I did it again. Okay, I think I've got you in the right room. If that's not right, come back.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, what I don't, okay, Monica's with the first grade. I just want to make sure Claribel is with kinder.
Kinder,
Carlos is with the other.
there's one more other group,
And I don't know.
and that's it. Everybody stayed in bigger groups.
Good. Well, we kind of started to lose people through the day. I don't blame them. I really don't blame
No,
them.
it's late and it's Friday. I mean,
Oh, that's the fastest I've ever gone through.
me
But
too.
I
On
think
that
it's
second,
okay.
I'm like, okay, and moving on.
Yeah, it's okay. They need this.
Yeah.
It's
And,
fine.
You know,
and
and even though it was fast, I think both of you hit the points that needed to be hit. So
Thank you, Maria.
It was yes, thank you, because it did feel a little like, I'm like, I am going to ignore all the notes that I took. I'm just going to like talk quickly and move on, talk quickly and move on.
So I have the Padlet up if we
Oh,
wanna
you do? Okay, because I was going to say,
share
do we need to
that.
switch screens for that? But no.
It doesn't matter because I'm out of it, but I have it. I do have it ready if.
No,
if
go
you
ahead and
want.
put it up. Just have it up when they get back.
Okay. I'm trying to think I don't think I have anything else besides a thank you slide, but I think this is good. Okay.
Yeah, it's so much.
Mhm. Oops, let
I mean,
move
I was as anxious as they were. Oh, same message as yesterday, though, that I private messaged you all.
Yes.
Reminder.
There we go.
Okay, well, I'm glad they each seem to have somebody with them.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to wait and see if they broadcast to have somebody come in.
You want I'm going to pop into the last other.
The one with other.
if I-
Okay,
if-
that sounds good. Then
Yeah.
everybody will have somebody.
Whoops, I closed it.
I just
can
know that if
join
I
you,
go into a
Jody.
room and they ask for help, I don't see
Yeah.
it.
I'm just going to go in, see if they have any questions, and then I can come back and also be
Perfect.
available. Okay.
Perfect.
Maybe actually, can I? Oh, I see. Okay.
You should be able to self-select in.
Yeah, I just,
And you'll be able to leave too. If you go to the bottom right, you can leave the room. Oh, but then of course we lost her shared screen. That's really funny.
oh yes.
That's okay. I will do, let me share mine and then it's the same thing. Doesn't matter whose screen it comes from. Let's see. There.
Will there be another giveaway? I can see yep, I can see
Yeah,
the
okay.
Padlet.
I don't think so. I think we're just gonna just say thank you and let them go. We're gonna pull them back in, see if there are any questions. We spent a lot more time on gradual release of responsibility than we anticipated, but it was good because they had
Yeah.
in their head that you had to get from model to independent in every lesson.
Oh.
And so there was a lot of clarification and like just saying, I mean, that is how I was taught it like 20 years ago, but it's not how we talk about it in Literacy Squared. I don't know if the rest of the world still talks about it that way, but it doesn't make sense. Kids need more scaffolds than that. So we had to do that clarification. And then they had questions like, this makes sense for us, but it's not what our leadership is encouraging us to do. How do we, who do we talk to change things? And so it was a nice conversation, but it just added a few minutes, and you know, when every minute counts. So it's good.
Yes.
I like that little baby up there with it's finally Friday, we made it.
That's great.
It's a very satisfied look.
I love that, this icebreaker.
Oh, it's a great one.
I love it.
And you can use it for so many things. So yesterday I was going to try to use it to say, how are you feeling about the information I just presented? Right. And people are great. They'll put stuff up like, you know, scratching my head. I don't get what you're talking about, or I get it, or I'm excited about it, or it's a really nice check-in. I like it a lot.
Yes.
Something
These
different.
are something different. And it's something that if it was an in-person PD, like we wouldn't be able to do something
That's
like
right.
this.
That's right. Yeah, that's the thing that I keep trying to remind myself all the things that have been good. We were trying to schedule with another district 2 days ago, and we're looking at, oh no, actually with this district last night, geez. We were looking at the fall schedule, and if we think about it as asynchronous or like distance, we could do a Tuesday and a Thursday. Like they don't have to be days right next to each other. And that's so different than when we fly there and we have to be there for a Monday, Tuesday, and then people are out of their classrooms for 2 days in a row. And we, like, I can't do a Tuesday, Wednesday, or a Wednesday, Thursday, because Wednesday's meeting day. But those are the best days for them because they don't, subs on Mondays and Fridays are hard. So it's really like, it has given us some advantages in how we can be flexible.
Yes.
But I am kind of anxious to get back with people in a room.
Yeah, there's definitely some things that just cannot be replicated. Or
They
like,
really can't. They really
Yeah.
can't. Even like when you try, you know, like when you all would come into class, I would always try to give you 10 minutes. It's still not the same thing because you're not necessarily with the person you would normally check in with, or, you know what I mean? When you get put in random groups, it's not like coming in and talking to your best buddy.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely.
And sometimes they're just not the people you want to share with. We do it. I say this because this is what we did in faculty meeting too. Like we would always get put in these groups, and sometimes I would look at who came up and I was like, you're not my people. And it's true, right? Like you have.
It's so true. Yeah, it's so true.
All right, well, so far no one is, I mean, each room has a person, so that's good. I don't see that they're calling us in. So that's good too. Hopefully this is good time for them to just think about their own work. This is what I miss. In a face-to-face, I would circulate tables, right? But here I'm just like waiting.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I wonder if they know how to call.
Well, they each have somebody in their room. So I would guess those people, because they all present themselves. Hopefully they know. I wonder what the other groups are, because everyone else is by grade level, but they could be multi-age or by a school, like vertical planning.
Yes. Are there any coaches? Maybe literacy coach?
So that was, so each room, so like Carlos, who's in the other, he's a coach, and Monica's a coach, and Claribel is a coach. So every room has one, but I think the others are classroom teachers, I think. There may be some specialists that I'm not sure about. We didn't do like the Menti we sometimes do, you know, where we get a sense of roles. I like the Menti a lot. I'm so grateful that you introduced that tool to us, because it's another really nice, quick, take the pulse of the room.
Yeah.
So my computer did something wacky in the middle of this, and I don't really know what happened. I'm a little bit afraid. So now it's got like a loud fan is on, and my desktop screensaver changed to some picture I've never seen. It's like an ocean picture. I'm sure it's just like a Mac, standard picture, but I don't know why it did that. I don't know what happened. So I'm a little concerned, but
Could it be an update,
it did it.
perhaps?
I can't imagine, but it did it while I was presenting. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna breathe. But now when I look like this ocean thing, I'm like, that's never been on my computer before. And now it's the fan just came on. So I'm like, oh, it's not happy with me, but I don't know why. And we can't like just go to Bob, like at least in the School of Ed, I'd be like, Bob, stop by my office, fix my stuff.
Yeah.
I wonder if we'll still have him in the new building.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I don't know. Been so
I
long
haven't even been in the new building, so
The only time I was there, that's right, you haven't been there at all. The only time I was there was when your class started, but you were still on Zoom. But
I
we
was
only
still
went
on
to the
Zoom.
first 2 classes. That was the last time I was in the building. So what was that, last September? And I only saw your classmates. Like we went in, we did class, we left. That was it.
Wow.
I don't actually, the building doesn't speak to me. It's somebody's style, but it's not mine. I just, I'm like, eh. All the offices have glass walls, so you feel like you're in a zoo cage where people can look at you. Yeah,
Ooh.
I think they like it's open concept. I'm not thrilled about it, especially because how often I have people like crying in my office. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
very private to have a breakdown with glass. I mean, I know I can shut the door, but it's not the same. I don't know.
Mhm.
But they did the best they could. It's a small space. It's very small.
Wow. Yeah, I know there was a concern among like graduate students
Yeah.
because we
there
would
it is.
have our little pods and now it's like completely open and then also like many people at the time also mentioned, well, where are we going to hold office hours like when we teach classes, like
Yeah.
and have those private conversations.
It's real. So I know there are like little like pod rooms you can go to, but I don't know what the checkout system is. I think those are legitimate concerns. Like what I hope, but I don't know, is that I can get additional keys to my office. And like, so like right now, Mary Beth and I are teaching the same thing, and I could give her a key and just be like, use my office if you need to, but I don't know because we're never there. It's so strange that they spent all this money and time and bought new furniture and all the things, and no one's been in there for a year. It's going to be dated by the time we get there. Oh. I do actually like watching these things. They're kind of zen.
Yes.
Oh. That little girl, you probably weren't there at the time, but that little girl who's dancing looks a lot to me like Wendy's oldest daughter when she was little. She's like 8 now or something, but she had that kind of look. Well, I hope that they got enough ideas to sort of inspire forward movement.
Yeah, so sometimes it's just great to see, get an overview of the possibilities
Mhm.
of how can they begin to do something.
Yeah.
I think that's
I think
always
too,
very
sometimes
important.
like it's mid-year, like sometimes you just need to see someone else's idea, you know, just you get stuck in your own brain and your old ways of doing things. But given that they have graciously stayed till 6:15 on a Thursday and Friday after teaching all day, I hope it feels useful.
Mhm. Yeah, it's amazing that they have that dedication.
It's so impressive. So impressive. All right. I'm going to, in one more minute, I'm going to give them a 2-minute, no, actually, I'm going to send it right now, 2-minute warning. Okay, they got a 2-minute warning.
Mhm.
Because we're just going to call them back and basically say thank you and goodbye if they don't have questions.
Yeah. How, do you know how big this district is, San Antonio?
Big. I don't know how many schools, but San Antonio is a size. The thing about San Antonio is that's tricky though, is there's San Antonio ISD, but then there are like Northern San Antonio has its own ISD. And so the city's broken up into different independent school districts. And that I don't understand very well. But I have done PD work in San Antonio, but it wasn't with San Antonio ISD. So I know that there are other school districts by geography.
Wow.
Here comes Jody. How was it? Uh-oh. Hold on, we can't hear you.
I just said so hard. It's so hard for the teachers right now. I'm really worried about them, and they're just feeling same things as before. I'll talk to you about it later. But with the pandemic, it's extra hard.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but just some challenges, but they were really appreciative, and we're making sense of things. But it's one thing to make sense of it and then look at how it works in SAISD.
It's hard. I mean, we know that because every time we do it, like, and it's easy to like put it on a slide and it makes sense, but to really delve in is tough. It really is.
It is.
I get it. When you went into the breakout room, we lost your shared screen. So I'm not sharing my screen.
I see that. That's great.
All right. People are coming back. I guess I should watch. Oh, they're a little less than 30 seconds till everyone will mandatorily be back.
Okay. And then it kicks them out.
Kicks them out. That's one of the things I talk about as an advantage. Like when I teach class, usually when I'm like, okay, another minute, it takes forever to get people back. But in Zoom, they just makes you come back. All right, we got 3, 2, they're all coming back now. Okay. We've gone back to have the Padlet up, so we go into our weekend just a little happier, a little more inspired. How can you not smile when you see that little child like this? You know, we made it, it's finally Friday. We know that Carlos is de puro party for his 50th.
Happy birthday, Carlos.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Carlos, again.
Any lingering thoughts, questions, anything you want us to address? We're going to get you out on time, but I want to make sure. The Padlet link's there. If you want to add something right now, it populates immediately. I don't have I do have the chat.
This is our last time with you this year, but we plan on being back in the spring, and we're always happy to answer any questions you might have. We're on email all day, every day. So Please don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions or want us to look at something or be a thought partner. But we'll be happy to see you all next year.
We appreciate you so much. Go rest your eyes and your brains and do whatever it is you do to refresh over the weekend. Maybe I'll spend a few minutes trying to pronounce alrededor. When my son was learning Spanish, he would sit in the back of the car and go, literatura, 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 until he could say it, right? I'm like, I need to do that. I get it. Thanks for hanging with us. We think you're wonderful. We appreciate you so much. Have wonderful weekends.
Thank you, everyone. Take good care.
Thank you all for everything. Ms. Gomez, I'm glad to see you. I had missed you. Feel free of you to reach out if you need anything. You know, I'm always a phone call away.
Oh, you're muted, Ms. Gomez.
Thank you, Literacy Square team, for being here with us all this year.
Oh, we love it. We love it. Well, we'll still get to see some of you, right? Because we have the 3rd through 5th graders in February.
Yes.
It'll be very similar. And then we'll try to speed it along.
Yes. We'll see each other in next month.
Please let us know. Let us know if you have any suggestions or changes you'd like us to address for the 3rd grade. We'd be happy to address those.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Take care, everyone.
Y'all have great weekends. Enjoy.
Y'all too. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Hasta luego.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I don't seem to have a weird leave for the first time ever. I don't have a leave button.
Oh, really? On the bottom right?
No.